So I want to start back at the beginning, you know, the story of how you were approached.
Sure.
Disney thought, hey, this guy would be the perfect writer to step into this space. So tell us how that all began.
Boy, the craziest person to do it. So I had never been to the parks until Marcella was here with me today. My wife and I wanted to bring our kids to the parks. And I'm in a rock and roll band with Stephen King and Amy Tan and Dave Barry and Scott Turow and Greg Isles and all these crazy people. And so I called Dave Barry, and I said, hey, I'm going to Disney World for the first time. Do you and Michelle and Sophie want to join us up there? And he said, well, first of all, I want to tell you that you can't go to Disney World without me, because I am the Disney World expert. And I said, okay, well then we should go together. Well, in the band, Dave's a very smart and funny guy. He's got the Pulitzer Prize. He's just an amazing guy. And he's always giving everybody grief in a very funny way. And so I thought, wait a second, you know, maybe because my adult side, I kill people for a living. I write murder mysteries. And my publisher happened to be a division of Disney. So I called my publisher and I said, Dave Barry is always one-upsing me. Is there any way you could help me one-ups him somehow? We're all going to Disney together. So lo and behold, about a month before we were going to go, they said, we're going to give you a free stay at the Grand Floridian. And there'll be some surprises in your room when you get there. So we got to Disney and with the Barrys. And in our rooms were cakes with the covers of our books being edited. And all the passes for attending Disney for the 3 days we were going to be there. And we were instructed to be in the lobby at like 7 or 8 in the morning to meet a woman who would show us around. Well, it turned out to be a VIP guide. So for the 3 days, we had a VIP guide with our little kids. And to this day, they think that's how you see Disney. Big problem for mom and dad.
Yeah.
And we had this just amazing, amazing time. And I had been brought up to always write a thank you note when somebody does something good for you. So when this was over, I wrote my publisher to thank him for this. I mean, it was seriously the most amazing 3 days you could ever have. And then it occurred to me, you know, a note isn't enough, I should call him. So I called him and said, I sent you a note, but I want you to know, you just absolutely blew our minds, and I was able to one-up Dave Barry because he'd never done half the stuff that we were able to do that week. And he said, well, it wasn't me, it was actually Disney Books who arranged this. It was a former employee of mine named Wendy Lefcon. So I called Wendy Lefcon to thank her for this. And I rambled on and blubbered on about how fantastic it was. And she said, well, what was the best thing you liked about it? And I said, well, the best thing I liked about it was, as a writer, every time we got on an attraction, I realized that there was a beginning, a middle, and an end to every attraction. Some parks, which shall go unnamed, want you to pay money just so they can make you throw up. But this place actually tells you a story every time you get on an attraction. And we wrote a couple of them a couple times, and I kept seeing different things. And I think this is because there was a bigger plan for every attraction to tell a story. And she said, well, there is, and there are these people called the Imagineers, which I had never heard of. And they write an 80 to 100-page book that tells the story of every attraction. And then there was a pause, and she said, have you ever thought about writing for kids? And I said, well, you know, I mean, I tell our kids stories at night, but I've never really thought of it in terms of writing books. And she said, we're looking for someone who can create a thriller-like book inside our theme parks where nothing bad can happen. And I said, well, thrillers, everything bad happens. And she said, well, that's the problem. Do you think you could do this? And I said, well, I'd love to give it a try. So I started submitting outlines, and the lawyers would reject it. They said, no, you know, you can't have a weapon in the park, you can't have anything bad happen to the kids, no one can sabotage a ride. Basically, there's no way to write a thriller inside Disney. And I said, but you're hiring me to do this. Well, I went to a symposium, and the guy who was speaking had a little, like, salad bowl on the desk. And on top of the salad bowl was a little plastic pig. And on our bathroom break, I went up to look at this pig, and I went to pick it up, and my fingers went through it. Because you can buy these on the internet. This was a little daylight imaging hologram. And it looked solid. It looked exactly like the little plastic pig that was down in the bottom of the bowl. And it's all these reflecting, and it pops out of the top. And it isn't like a movie hologram where it's transparent. It looked absolutely solid. And I kept going, oh my gosh. And then I went, wait, what if the kids in my story were holograms? Then how can the lawyers object? And I ran it by them, and they said, that makes it totally safe, go for it. And that was the birth of the Kingdom Keepers. But my problem was the way I wrote my thrillers at the time was I would observe, and I would write, and I would edit. Observe, write, and edit. Observation might be Google, it might be the library. It was always at least going to the place I wrote about. And I was going to write about being in Disney after the park closes. That's what interested me. What happens in those 12 hours when we aren't there? We all know what it's like when we are there. So what happens when we aren't there? And I explained to Wendy Lefkon, who was going to be my editor, that I couldn't do this unless I gained full access backstage after hours. And she said, oh, as if. And that's literally what she said to me. She said, so I guess this is where we part ways, And I said, I guess. And she called me back a month later and said, so I've gotten you a VIP pass that lets you and your family into any of our parks for free around the world. And if you call ahead of time, we will assign an Imagineer to show you into the parks when no one's there. Now can you write the books? And I said, yes! Now I can write the book. So the first time I went, they took me to, and you might have even been on that one. You were early on in all of these. Chris would be part of these tours. But at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, we went to Splash Mountain, Thunder Mountain, Space Mountain, and It's a Small World. And for those of you who've read the books, when I was on Splash Mountain, I was being shown around by this white-haired guy who had been with Disney parks for 30-some years. He had met Walt Disney in the day, and he knew everything there was to know about the parks. And we walked Splash Mountain when it was dry, when it was turned off. Then they turned it on for me, 5,000 gallons a minute runs through that thing, and they let me ride it 5 times by myself, that kind of stuff. It was amazing. But this guy was so knowledgeable, and I had already started writing the books pre-site research. And I said, there's a guy in my books named Fred, but the more I talk to you, you're really Fred. And I wonder, could I put your name in the book? Do any of you know who I'm talking about?
Wayne.
Wayne. So the guy's name was Wayne on his thing. So I named him Wayne and in the book. And then, lo and behold, as the books became more and more popular, I got these notes from Wayne saying, these young kids are recognizing my name tag, and they're saying, are you Wayne from the Kingdom Keepers? And he'd say, you're darn right I am. And he'd pull out a map, and he'd say, here, and he'd sign it to them. So for years, Wayne, who worked at Splash Mountain, was a real live Kingdom Keeper. And you can't believe what this did for the series, because what seemed to them a piece of fiction, when they saw there was a real Wayne, they said, oh, it's all real. So it was an amazing story.